Before we were black, reclaiming the spiritual and historical truths of our identity. This talk is meant to spark deep reflection and conversation, not necessarily to sway you one way or the other. But question, do you think that Negro is a derogatory term? Do you think that Negro is a derogatory term? Would you be offended today if someone called you Negro? That's some food for thought. I'm coming to you today as a proud Negro woman. Yes, the grounding and strength that I'm experiencing just calling myself Negro, I have not felt while considering myself a Black woman. I've just had trouble connecting with Black. It just feels like it's not enough. Black doesn't feel like it's enough to define all of who I am. So there's a certain resistance in my spirit to the term Black. I'll explain. Okay. I wanted to find out why there was this resistance. Hello, Mary Love. I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here, sis. I wanted to find out why there was a certain resistance in my spirit to the term Black. I want you to hear me out. I would like you to watch the entire video so that maybe you'll understand where I'm really coming from. Welcome to the Black History Month episode, Black History Month 2025 episode of the Big Up Yourself show. And you have every right to big up yourself. If you are a melanated person watching this, a special big up yourself to you. My work is especially for trauma survivors, okay? And we as a collective have been traumatized by white supremacy ideologies from historic times to currently. There's no denying that. We've been traumatized. So in presenting this topic today, I am in fact doing trauma work, and hopefully something is said here that might be healing to you on some level. If you're here, please subscribe, join the community, check us out, see what we're about, turn on that notification so that when we go live or upload a video, you don't miss it. And please, to new and returning, if you're new or returning, do press that thumbs up icon. Please do. And look, those comments are gold. You hear me? The comments are gold. We literally cannot survive without these likes and comments. So I'm grateful when you DM me your feedback and tell me you enjoy the show or you've been inspired or whatever. I'm grateful for the DMs. But it's the thumbs up and the comments in the comment section that really, really counts. So thank you and welcome. It's going to be a long one tonight, so buckle up. So I wanted to express my discomfort with the term Black to describe us. And I can't remember exactly when I started to feel uncomfortable with the word. And I just started, I'm like, who told us we were Black? Where did that come from? Why don't I connect with that word Black? And I started questioning, trying to figure out why. Years of questioning, why don't I connect with Black? And then I started to reason that maybe it's the designer in me, because when I think of black, I think of like black, like the color. And I know that some of us have very dark skin, like really dark skin. I've seen dark, dark, dark skin. But to me, that's not black. So I've just been uncomfortable with the word. And then even the pronunciation of the word black when it is said to describe us gives me, I don't know, I cringe, right? So there's something about the inflection or the intonation of the word black and the emphasis on black. I'm sorry, it just bothers me. But how do I feel about Negro? When I hear Negro, when I think of Negro, I feel pride. I I, I see dignity. I see mystery. I see a being possessing deep spiritual knowledge and understanding. I see a sacred being, a reverent, poised, resolute, strong, dignified, unconquerable, and undeniable being or spirit. Those are the feelings I get from the word Negro that I don't get from the word black. Oh, and I'm calling on my ancestors. Please help me explain this. Help me explain this. I answer to Black woman, but it's when I call myself a Negro woman that I feel pride and strength and reverence for my roots. Negro makes me think of women like Chimamanda Ngozi, like I'm envisioning. When the word Negro comes to my mind, I envision a strong, poised, resolute, intelligent, highly spiritual being strutting down the road in confidence. I see women like Chimamanda Ngozi, Maya Angelou, Harriet Tubman, Tina Turner, Nanny of the Maroons, Michelle Obama, Stephanie Perry, maybe myself, my good friend Tori, whose screen name is Prophet Mother, and another good friend Shannon Maruli, and my biological sisters, all of whom I call phenomenal women. When I think of Negro, I think of these women, and then men like Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela, Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte. Look, I'm leaving out an endless list of ones whose name should have been called, but these are the names that come to me quickly, right? There's something about the word Negro that is defining, that sets us apart, that is powerful and awe-inspiring. To me, Negro to me carries a certain energy that is deep and sacred and spiritual, and I can sense why they fear us. When I think of us as Negroes and all that Negro encompasses, I can sense why they fear us, why they fear the Negro. There are characteristics of us that they are resentful of, that they wish they had, so they want to beat it out of us. They know that they are not superior to us. They know that we are strong, smart, clever, wise, spiritual, creative, philosophical, more than them in many ways, but they will never accept or admit it. So they beat and rape and oppress us and steal our stuff, our inventions, our wealth, and they fear us becoming the majority. And it got me thinking, if we all took our stuff and went back to to Africa, America would crumble. The West would crumble if we all just up and went back to Africa. They can't survive without us. But they won't let us believe that. They're trying to erase history to keep us ignorant of their cruelty so that we forget who we are and forget the fight. This way, they can maintain hierarchy. So, anyways, Black doesn't feel good to me, so I wanted to understand why. And I've come to trust my intuition. And so it's interesting that my connection to the underground YouTube conductor, hello, welcome. Yeah, so I've learned to trust my intuition. And so it's interesting that my connection to the term Negro seems to be coming from an intuitive ancestral place. I feel like my ancestors are calling me to the significance of this word and its deeper meaning. So I felt like I should explore the linguistic and historical roots of the term Negro. I'm going to share what I can here today, and I'm going to continue digging and continue to share. So we know that words carry energy, history, and meaning beyond surface definitions, right? There is a certain power and sound and spiritual vibration to the word Negro that resonates with me in a way that Black doesn't. I feel that Negro is tied to ancestral connections and historical consciousness. Absolutely, you may join. Absolutely. Anyone, Laura, you are welcome to join. Absolutely. Okay, so historical recognition of the word Negro. Negro was once a term of dignity and self-identification used by prominent Black leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois and Martin Luther King Jr. It was associated with movements for civil rights and intellectual empowerment. And then adopted by Black leaders in the 19th and early 20th centuries, prominent figures like W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington advocated for the use of the term Negro as a term of respect and racial pride, right? So they advocated for the term of Negro as a term of respect and racial pride. I think I'm feeling what those brothers were feeling. Thank you, Marilyn. You're welcome as long as you're respectful. Thank you for that, Marilyn. Thank you. Okay, so linguistic distinction. Some people feel that Negro connects more directly to African heritage and historical identity, whereas Black is just a broad, often ambiguous term that can feel detached from cultural roots. That's what I'm sensing. I feel like I said earlier before, Black doesn't seem to encompass all of who I am. It feels detached from cultural roots. Yeah. So over time, racial terminology, Laura said she didn't know. Okay, there were things I didn't know as I was doing this research, things that I learned that I'm sharing today. Over time, racial terminology has changed frequently, really due to external forces rather than community driven choices, right? So these terms were enforced upon us, they were not our choice. So where they called us Black as an insult, we now adopt the term as a symbol of pride and strength. We do. And that should help me feel more comfortable with the term, but I still prefer Negro. Preferring Negro to me is a way for me to reclaim a word that was once widely accepted with pride. Negro was once widely accepted with pride. And so, regarding spiritual or philosophical meaning, Black sounds to me light and arbitrary. It doesn't convey the depth and breadth of our existence or influence and contribution to society and history. To me, Negro has a historical and spiritual weight that Black doesn't. There is a certain power, authenticity, and sound vibration to Negro that resonates with me in a way that Black doesn't. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're gonna get a little deeper. It's gonna get even better. So origins and purpose, Negro spirituals, right? Negro spirituals, those folk songs created by enslaved Africans in America, these songs served as expressions of faith, hope, and resistance, often embedding coded messages and fostering a sense of community. So back to my sense of spirituality of the word. Why those songs had to be, why those songs they sang had to be, why they couldn't be some other vibe? Why were they? They were just intrinsically spiritual, right? But that's our ancestral legacy, spirituality. We're a deeply spiritual people. And you're going to see that spirituality theme come up over and over and over again in this presentation because that's who we are, a sacred people. That's what I'm sensing in the word, Negro. I hope you're beginning to understand what I'm saying. I know some of you are just going to purposely try to not understand me, right? You're just going to tune me out, and that's okay. But come to think of it, we had to be made deeply spiritual because how else would we endure all the evil we've suffered over the centuries and still be vibrant and thriving despite all efforts to break us? So, when did Black become a standard term? 18th to 19th century, during the Enlightenment, racial classifications like Black, white, Mongoloid became rigid, influenced by pseudo-scientific ideas of race. 20th century, the term Negro was commonly used in the US in the 20th century. But by the 1960s, during the civil rights and Black Power movements, activists like Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture rejected Negro in favor of Black as a term of empowerment. 1970s to present, Black became the dominant racial identifier in the US, with African American gaining popularity in the 1980s. So we went from Black to African American. And this happened particularly after Jesse Jackson promoted African American as a way to emphasize heritage. So the racial caste system in Western society solidified Black as a legal and social classification rather than a chosen identity. We did not choose to be called Black. This was imposed upon us. So they disrespectfully categorized us as Black. But some of our ancestors took on Black and wore it as a symbol of strength and power. My spirit is still resistant to it, right? So, but understanding pre-colonial African identities, what we were before we were known as Black. And the episode of the show is titled Before We Were Black, Reclaiming Our Historical and Spiritual Identity. What were we before we became labeled Black, and by whom? I wanted to know. So we're seeking to gain an understanding of pre-colonial African identities to help us reclaim historical and spiritual truths. The term Negro has historical weight, but Black was imposed to categorize and oppress, not empower. I want to say that again. The term Negro has historical weight, but Black was imposed to categorize and oppress, not to empower. So then there was a shift from Black to African American. The term Negro began to decline in usage during the Civil Rights Movement as leaders as Stokely Carmichael promoted Black as a symbol of empowerment. But in contemporary perspectives today, while Negro is largely considered outdated and potentially offensive, it remains embedded in historical context, such as in the names of organizations like the United Negro College Fund. Okay? That organization still exists with that name. Then there's the National Council of Negro Women, the NCNW. There are a lot of organizations that still use the term Negro. Negro Ensemble Company, the NEC, Negro Actors Guild of America, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. This one was founded by Marcus Garvey in 1914. The UNIA was a Black nationalist organization that promoted the social, political, and economic empowerment of people of African descent worldwide. And then there's the Negro Organization Society. I'm just letting you know, if you think the word is dead, it's not. And you can still wear it with pride if you understand the historic and spiritual weight of it. Please leave a comment if you're watching in the replay. Leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking so far. So then they went from calling us colored to calling us Black to now African American. And it begs the question, what will we be called next? And why don't we come up with our own identifier and insist on it? Why don't we come up with what we want to be called and insist that we are identified as such, something that ties us to our historical and spiritual roots? So where did the term Black come from? And how come we just readily accept it? And what if we really began to see ourselves as more than just Black? Would that encourage us to be more proud? Would it encourage us to be stronger? Would we be more united? Would our fight be different? Would it be more fervent or bolder if we began to see ourselves as more than just Black? Would we be bolder? Would our fight be more fervent? Would we begin to really unite? Would we be even more empowered, and would our collective self-esteem improve so that we no longer accept the crumbs they toss us, but to demand and take our rightful place as kings and queens and rulers of our own destiny? One could hope for more unitedness, yes. Would the revolution be more systemic and strategic if we began to consider ourselves as more than just Black? I feel like, yeah, we tout Black power, but I feel like in wearing the Black title, I feel like we're just not aware of our strength. Would we take time to research what we can do in our own little corner to advance the power of the collective if we thought of ourselves as more than just Black? Like Shannon wrote today when she mentioned that she filled out, you know how they ask us to identify ourselves on these forms if we are Black or African American, and she felt emboldened to list herself as Nubian. That's her doing her little part to fight back, to resist. And that's like me doing presenting this talk this evening. If we all did our little part. But let's start with how we came to be called Black. Who called us that? Who told us we were Black? Colonizers. Colonizers told us we were Black. Nubian is a term that a historic term that we use to describe ourselves, and it'll become more clear as the presentation comes on. It's yeah, it's going to be addressed as the presentation continues, so just pay attention. So who first called us black and why? We did not come up with black. We did not come up with the term black. We did not originally identify as black. Before we were categorized and labeled black, we identified ourselves by ethnic groups, by kingdoms, and by spiritual affiliations. I told you that spirituality is going to keep coming up. So, yeah, we never called ourselves black. We never identified ourselves as black. We identified by ethnic groups, one of which is Nubian, Laura. We identified ourselves as kingdoms and with spiritual affiliations. The world knew Africans by specific names, not as black people. Okay? They were Moors, Cushites, Ethiopians, and members of great nations. Enslavement and colonization stripped many Africans of their specific ethnic titles: Yoruba, Igbo, Akan, etc., leaving a broad racial term as a unifier. So why black instead of ethnic identities? Africans did not originally see themselves as a single racial category like black. Instead, they had specific ethnic, cultural, and spiritual identities that were rich and varied. The concept of blackness as a racial identity only emerged due to European colonization, slavery, and the need to create a racial hierarchy. White supremacy. White supremacy created blackness as a race, as a racial identity. Thank you for subbing. Thank you, new subby. Thank you. So when I've said, I never knew I was black until I moved to the US. Some might have looked at me sideways and sneer and think, well, you must have been living under a rock if you didn't know you were black. Well, the pun is, I am from Jamrock. Yes, I've been living under a rock. I'm from Jamrock, Jamaica. Jamrock is one of Jamaica's nicknames. So, yeah. And in Jamaica, I never had to question my origin, right? I was just a person, a citizen of a country. And I was watching a podcast and I heard the sister, she said it best. She said, living in Jamaica, I had the privilege of not having to think about the white man every day. She didn't have to think about herself as black or as a different minority race. Right? Thanks for sharing. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. I'm glad to. Coolin. I'm not sure what that means. I hope it's something good. And this, I don't know what that means. I hope it's something good. Okay. All right. So, filling out forms and having to declare Black or African American still feels disrespectful to me. When you're filling out those forms and they ask you to identify whether you're Black or African American or whatever else, it feels disrespectful to me. And I feel it's a modern day segregation tactic, and I'm generally anti segregation. My dream is similar to that of Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream that we'll all get together, that we'll all see each other as just people and not different races, and that we'll all get along. But I'm not so naive that I don't see that that won't happen in my lifetime. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you for that. So, where did the term Black come from? When did it become the word to describe us? Who called us Black? Origins of the term Black. The word Black comes from an Old English word, BLAEC, meaning dark or without light. It was used descriptively in many languages, often associated with darkness, mystery, or even negativity in Western cultures. In contrast, however, African and indigenous spiritual traditions often saw Blackness as powerful, fertile, and sacred. So they want to associate us with darkness and inferiority, right? But we saw Blackness as powerful, fertile, and sacred, but it was never about race. Never about race. Who first called us Black? Early colonial laws in the Americas around the 16th and 17th centuries referred to Americans as Black to distinguish them from whites, thereby reinforcing racial hierarchy. This is white supremacy. They called us Black to distinguish us from whites, to elevate themselves over us. White supremacy. Now, before this talk this evening, did you ever consider who first called us Black? Have you ever thought about where the term Black came from to describe us? Has that, or have you always just accepted the term without question? So, ethnic and tribal identities. Africans primarily identified by their ethnic groups, which carry deep cultural, linguistic, and historical significance. And here's some major ones. In California, 1970s, that's when I heard the term Black. Yes, that's around the civil rights movement. Yeah, just beyond the civil rights movement, when certain Black leaders took on the term as with a sense of empowerment. Africans identified by their ethnic groups, their cultural, linguistic, and historical significance. Some of the major ones are the original African identity before colonization. Africa was not a single identity, but a vast collection of powerful empires. Mali, Congo, Ethiopia, Ghana, and ethnic groups, Yoruba, Igbo, Akan, Zulu. Africans define themselves by lineage, by kingdom, and spiritual connection. There goes that spiritual again. This is how they identify themselves, right? By lineage, kingdom, and spiritual connection, not skin color. Spiritual traditions honor divinity within humanity. That's what we were about. We honor divinity within humanity. Colonizers didn't want us doing that. Divinity within humanity, example, the Orishas in Yoruba, ancestral worship in Kemet. The world knew Africans by specific names, not as Black people. They were Moors and Cushites, Ethiopians, and members of great nations. Kingdoms and empires. Before European colonizations, Africans also identified with their kingdoms and empires, which were major centers of trade, culture, and knowledge. Mali Empire in West Africa, 13th to 16th century, was famous for Mansa, Musa, and Timbuktu's learning centers. We had things going on before colonization. The Kingdom of Congo, Central Africa, 14th to 19th century, had diplomatic ties with European nations. Yes, Kemet, yes. Ethiopian Empire, East Africa, ancient to 1974, one of the few African nations that resisted full colonization. The Ethiopian Empire, right, resisted full colonization. Huh. The Ghana Empire, West Africa, 8th to 13th century, was a major player in the gold trade. Benin Kingdom, Nigeria, 11th to 19th century, known for its advanced bronze artistry. The wealth of natural resources in Africa. Way back in the 11th century, in the Benin Kingdom, was dealing in bronze. Wow. Was known for its advanced bronze artistry. People identified with these civilizations much like Europeans identified as Romans, Greeks, or Celts, not as Black people. Before colonization and the transatlantic slave trade imposed racial categories like Black or Negro, African peoples identified themselves by ethnic groups, kingdoms, or spiritual affiliations. Here are some of the key entities they used. African societies identified based on their spiritual, and here comes the Kemet. Kemet! Talk about it, Shaman said. Yeah. Used by ancient Egyptians to describe their land, meaning black land, referring to the fertile soil, not race. I heard Brother Dr. Kumar Johnson talking about the black land, the fertility of the black land. But yeah, they were referring to the fertile soil, not race. Some African scholars argue that many enslaved Africans had ancestral links to the spiritual traditions of ancient Kemet, Egypt. Children of the Orishas, Yoruba people saw themselves as descendants of divine spirits called Orishas, not just Black people. They felt themselves as descendants of divine spirits called Orishas. And then there were the Moors, a term used by Arabs and later Europeans of North and West Africans, especially those who ruled Spain. Nubian, like my sister put on her form yesterday. Nubian refers to the people of Kush, modern Sudan. That's what those people were known as, Nubian. And then the Bantu peoples. Many groups across Central, Eastern, and Southern Africa share linguistic and cultural traits under the Bantu identity. So Yoruba, Igbo, Akan, Zulu, Maasai, etc., ethnic names that predate colonial categorization. Yes, this is what we were before they started calling us Black. So descriptions by outsiders before Black. Before Europeans imposed Black as a racial term, some outside civilizations use different descriptions. Kushites, we mentioned that earlier. It's a reference to the people of Nubia, which is modern Sudan. And these people had powerful ancient kingdoms. The Ethiopians, the Greeks used Aethiops, burnt face, to describe darker skinned Africans, but this did not carry a racialized meaning like later European terms. These identities shaped people's worldviews, governance systems, and spiritual practices. Africans did not originally see themselves as a single racial category like Black. Instead, they had specific ethnic, cultural, and spiritual identities that were rich and varied. The concept of blackness as a racial identity only emerged due to European colonization, slavery, and the need to create a racial hierarchy, white supremacy. Yes, that's what I thought, Shannon, as I was digging around. So, question for you, audience. Now, can you answer the question, if your ancestors didn't call themselves Black, who did and why? Can you answer that question now? If your ancestors didn't call themselves Black, who did and why? How did colonization create Blackness as a racial category? European colonizers used race as a tool to divide, dehumanize, and control. Used race as a tool to divide, dehumanize, and control. It has always been their goal to dehumanize us. Africans were stripped of their tribal names, their languages, and spiritual systems and replaced with European identities. They gave us the language that they preferred for us to use. They made it so that we abandoned our languages and our spiritual systems. They demonized our spiritual systems. Don't you want to know your original language, your original names, and your original spiritual systems? Don't you want to know about these things that they took from us? The transatlantic slave trade turned people into property, calling them Negro or Black, reduced them to skin color, erasing their histories and cultures. Oh my God. They did a work on us, erasing our histories and cultures. Colonizers introduced Christianity in a distorted way, teaching Africans that their indigenous beliefs were pagan or evil. Demonized our spirituality, killed us, burned us at the stake for practicing our own spirituality. All our ancient knowledge of spirits and the workings of the universe, ancient spiritual practices of healing and understanding of the elements like the stars and water, they took all that from us. All these things they didn't understand. They didn't understand them. So they took all of that from us and replaced it with religion, which we still observe today. Oh my God. Don't let me get started on Christianity on the Bible. Don't let me get started on that. They imposed all that on us and taught it in a distorted way, took our spiritual practices from us and gave us their religion and their white God. Yes. Look at that. We are the only race that got our native tongue taken away. Why were we such a threat? Blackness as we know it today was designed by colonizers, but our true identity is deeper than race. Yes, we were. Yes, we were. Our true identity is deeper than race. Leave a comment if that means anything to you. The spiritual consequences of colonization. Colonization disconnected us from our sacred selves and convinced us that power was external in a white God. It's deeper than race. Oh my God. They disconnected us from our sacred selves and convinced us that power was external. We knew intrinsically that power is within us, internal. And they convinced us that power was external in a white God, in European approval. We know that power is internal. We are connected to the source of all energy. We are the extension of God. We knew this until they served us their own white God. Many African spiritual systems were labeled as witchcraft or savagery, pushing people to abandon ancestral wisdom. Hmm. Yeah, we couldn't practice our spirituality because they call that witchcraft, sorcery. Back then, practicing things like visualization was demonized, called sorcery, and we were brutalized and killed for our spiritual understanding of how the universe works. So the term black became associated with negativity in the West, darkness, evil, inferiority, while white symbolized purity and superiority. Now think about this: black. They associated black with darkness, evil, and inferiority, while white symbolized purity and superiority. And a lot of us are still brainwashed today. They set themselves up as pure and clean and superior while making us dirty, evil, inferior. They did this on purpose to dehumanize and control us. Even today, many struggle with internalized racism, viewing African history through a colonial lens. I want you to reflect on this. What if we embrace the spiritual truths of our ancestors instead of the labels given us by colonizers? And I want to run through some of the truths, and these are I'm having trouble saying that word, truths, right? They're not propaganda, they're not hearsay, they're um not propaganda, not just theories. These are truths. All right. Here are some spiritual truths about our ancestors and by extension about us. Held church upstairs and had us in chains, beating us downstairs. Yes, in a so-called castle. Oh my God. And justified it through scripture. Mm, 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 mm. But here are some spiritual truths about our ancestors and by extension us. This is who we are and were before they reduced us to just blacks and stripped us of our heritage. When you think of yourself from here on, think within this framework and see the truth about yourself and your heritage. These are truths. You have a divine connection to the oneness of all life. That's the truth. Many African spiritual systems saw the universe as interconnected. The supreme creator was often viewed as an all encompassing force rather than a distant deity, the God of the Bible, the white man's God, the colonizer's God. Yeah. The supreme creator was viewed as an all encompassing force rather than a distant deity. Example, in Yoruba spirituality, Olodumare is the supreme creator, but divine energy, as say, flows through everything. The ancestors as guides and protectors. We knew the ancestors to be guides and protectors. They didn't want us knowing that. They didn't want us believing that. So honoring ancestors was not just about remembrance, it was about maintaining an active relationship with those who came before. We knew the importance of maintaining those active relationships with those who came before. That's part of our spirituality. In many African traditions, including Akan and Igbo cultures, the living, the dead, and the unborn are all part of a continuous spiritual lineage. These are spiritual truths, you guys. Oh, you think the truth is in the Bible? But let me not listen. I'm not here to take your God from you and your Bible from you. I'm just presenting a point of view. You believe what you want to believe. If you feel so moved, go do some research, go digging around and see what you come up with. Begin to ask some questions. Um, and then, oh my God, they knew the power of the spoken word. Nomo. I'll never go to the slave castles in Ghana and Nigeria. Too many other beautiful things in those countries to see and experience. I don't think my heart could take it either, Dr. T. I don't think our heart could take it either. Ugh. But now we knew the power of the spoken word, right? These are truths, remember. Words were seen as having creative power. Oh my God, you guys, our ancestors knew these things. We knew these things before they were beaten out of us. Words were seen as having creative power. Speaking something into existence was a sacred act. This is how we lived before they taught us their religion, before they took these things from us. We knew that speaking something into existence was a sacred act. Our ancestors lived this way. In my visualization clinics, I teach about the importance of speaking our affirmations on our dreams out loud. Speak your affirmations. When I write my affirmations in the mornings, I speak them out. When I'm aspiring for stuff, when I'm planning stuff, when I'm visualizing, I speak things out. You gotta put your words to it. Yeah, speak your affirmations out loud. Speaking something into existence was a sacred act. They took some of our teachers and reworked them into the Bible, then refed it to us in a distorted way. The doggone people of Mali believe that speech, normal, carried divine force, shaping reality itself. Speech carries divine force and shapes reality. Oh my God. I wonder if y'all are hearing what I'm saying. These are things our people knew. These are things our people practiced. And the funny thing is, science is just now catching up with these things that our ancestors knew all along. They can't even deny it anymore. Yeah. Uh, and they believed in the sacredness of nature. Rivers, mountains, and trees were not just physical objects, but living entities with spirits. In Congo, spirituality, Kalunga, represents the boundary between the physical and spiritual world, often symbolized by water. Oh my God, let me tell you something. You think water is ordinary? In my visualization clinic, there is a segment on the sacredness of water. When you take my visualization clinic, you'll never look at water the same again. Every sip of water you take, oh, my friends, is a sacred act if you connect with your ancestors. You got to come to the clinic. You got to come to the clinic. It's 3 parts, but you have to take part 1 before parts 2 and 3. Another part 1 session is coming up April 19th. Be there. It will change your life. The link is in the description box. And if you register early, you save $50. But the divine self, oh my God. Some of you don't like to think about yourself. some of you will not connect. Don't see yourself as powerful. Will not big up yourself. don't realize just how powerful the self is, the divine self. Many African traditions thought that divinity was within humans. Humans were not separate from God, but extensions of divine energy. What they teach us about God is not what our ancestors knew and believed. Among the Akan, the Kra was the soul, was believed to be a fragment of the Creator sent into the body for a unique earthly mission. I feel like I'm doing my unique earthly mission right now. Yes, register for the clinic, you guys. That's the link right there. It'll change your life. That's what people who have taken the clinic have said. When I think about our spirituality, it makes it easy for me to identify as a Negro for the historic and spiritual weight of it. When I think of Negro, I think of extraordinary. And then I understand why they hate and they fear us. Colonization erased many of these teachings and replaced them with narratives of inferiority. But what if we reclaim the spiritual truths of our ancestors? These are not just theories, like I said, they are truths, they are undeniable. And just in case you have a question about what is colonization, because I didn't understand it for a while, I heard the word being tossed around, and I had to go find out for myself what is colonization. Colonization is the process by which one nation or group takes control over another territory, often exploiting its resources and people. It typically involves settlers, economic domination, and cultural imposition. Colonization has occurred throughout history, but the European colonization of Africa, the Americas, and parts of Asia has had particularly long lasting effects. We're still suffering the effects of colonization. Oh, all right, Marilyn. All right. Okay. Y'all read that there. She's giving us, oh my God, she's giving us some more information there. Yes. Thanks for that, my friend. Thanks for that. That's awesome. That's good information. Yeah. So I'm just about done, but let me tell you how colonization works. Colonization followed these stages. There's the exploration stage, where European nations like Portugal and Spain and Britain and France sent explorers to survey lands and resources. And then there's the conquest phase. Colonizers use military force, deception. They still use a lot of deception on us today, or alliances to take control of local governments. There's exploitation. Colonizers extracted resources, gold, diamond, crops, labor for their own wealth, often using enslaved or forced labor. And then there was cultural domination. Indigenous beliefs, languages, and traditions were suppressed in favor of European customs and Christianity. And then came racial hierarchies. Europeans categorized people by race, placing themselves at the top and justifying oppression through pseudoscientific science and religion. White supremacy. So African colonization, the creation of Black as a race. They created Black as a race. Before European colonization, Africa was home to powerful empires, trade routes, and diverse ethnic groups. We were kings and queens of empires and enjoyed great wealth. The transatlantic slave trade starting in the 1400s marked the beginning of Africa's large-scale exploitation. Enslaved Africans were labeled Black to differentiate them from Europeans, stripping them of their ethnic and cultural identities. I'm almost done. The Scramble for Africa, 1884 to 85, saw European nations carve up Africa into colonies without African input. Carved up Africa without African input, leading to artificial borders that still cause conflict today. Colonizers imposed European language, English, French, Portuguese. These were not all original languages. Like my like my friend here, Ma Boma, just shared with us. Um, yeah. So they imposed their languages, their Christian beliefs, and Western education, erasing many indigenous practices. So, how do we decolonize? How do we decolonize? As Bob Marley put it, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Decolonization and its challenge. African nations fought for independence in the 20th century, but the legacy of colonization, economic dependence, the legacy of colonization includes economic dependence, cultural disruption, and imposed borders, and that remains today. Even after political independence, Western influence continues through economic control, cultural imperialism, and institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. That's how they control us. Oh my God. Reclaiming our true identity. So, I guess the solution to reclaiming our identity is not just rejecting Black as a label, but connecting with who we were before colonization. That's the goal. The goal is to reclaim who we were historically and spiritually before colonization. And that's why Negro resonates with me on an ancestral vibration, because it carries for me a spiritual frequency that speaks to me. African spirituality teaches that we are divine, powerful, and creators of reality. We are creators. You see, they're teaching that now like it's something they came up with, like something they discovered. We've always known that we are the creators of reality. Mm. That's how we built these great kingdoms and great structures, ancient structures, because we are powerful creators of reality. When I think of myself as a Negro woman, I'm reminded of my ability to create reality, that I'm a co creator with the universe. As I teach in my visualization clinic, I have a co creator initiation ceremony because we are co creators with the universe. And the link to the clinic is in the description. Let's see what the practice of colonialism often involved violence, exploitation, and the destruction of native cultures. That is correct. That's what we're saying. How? For me, I will begin by writing Negro on every single document. Small step, but part of my reclamation. Perfect. Perfect, sis. Perfect. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I will write. I'll write Nubian too, because I like that too, because we were known as Nubians in certain regions. Yeah. So decolonizing our minds means what Shannon just put there. She's gonna write Negro on all of it, right? Because learning our true history beyond what schools teach, that's how we begin to decolonize our minds, emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. Decolonizing our minds means exploring indigenous African spiritual systems without fear. Without fear. It's our birthright, right? These are things our people knew intrinsically. That's available to us. We can still use those practices today. And we can question colonial narratives about race, about God, and identity. We can question these things like I've been doing. Ah, many thanks for flashing my band to comment on the screen. My YouTube name, Maboma, means many villages in Kiswahili, referring to vast African. Oh, so I gotta let me write this down because I've got to subscribe to your channel, sis. What is it? Maboma. Okay. All right. Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go check out our sister over here. Is a sister or a guy? I don't know. But yeah, we'll check you out. Um. Okay. So what was I saying? I was saying that. Yeah. Questioning. Okay. Decolonizing our minds. It's a whole video by itself. Questioning colonial narratives about race, God, and identity. Shoot. Yeah. But key takeaway, we were never just Black. That's the thing, Marilyn. There was a part in the presentation I left out because I felt that it was a little inflammatory. But the reason that they still continue to dominate us, right, is because we prefer peace. It's because we were not created as violent as them. We are spiritual, peace loving people generally, right? If we were ever as evil as they, oh, it would be over. It would be over. If we were to rise up and be as brutal as they, and that's what they fear that one day we're going to rise up and it's going to be over. But that's not what we want. We just want peace. We just want to live alongside you all and be respected as a person. Imagine if we all wrote that on documents without fear. What we've seen as demoralizing will become freeing. Oh my God. Shannon, let's start a movement. Let's start a movement. Write that on our documents. Man, when I saw that you said you wrote Nubian today, I'm like, look at that girl go. Look at her go. Yes, take back our power. Be identified how we want to be identified. You don't impose your identification on us. So, yeah, we were never just Black, we were something greater. It's time to remember who we are. Before we were Black, we were kings and queens and healers and builders. It's time to reclaim our truth. Subscribe to Maboma, many villages. Okay, let me write that down. Many. Oh, so Maboma means many villages? Okay. Yeah, it's time to reclaim our truth, you guys. Africans did not originally see themselves as a single racial category like Black. Instead, they had specific ethnic, cultural, and spiritual identities that were rich and varied. The concept of Blackness as a racial identity only emerged due to European colonization, slavery, and the need to create a racial hierarchy, white supremacy. Okay? And I'm just about done. But I want to encourage you to research your ancestry. Research where you came from, what region of Africa you came from. We all came from somewhere in Africa. And research what your language was, what your people's language was, what their spirituality was. Explore all that, explore the traditions, and question the colonial mindset that you've inherited. Please like the video. And please leave your comment. If you haven't liked the live yet, please go ahead and like it right now. Please leave a comment if you're watching. And you know what? Would you, even though you've been on the live right now, would you go back to the video and put a comment in there, please? Um, the comments are gold. We can't survive without the comments, y'all. So comment what stood out to you today, right? Did you receive some enlightenment? Like, oh, Shannon said she's gonna put Negro on her stuff. Yes. Comment what the underground Newton. Yeah. Have a good night. Yeah. Comment what changed, what clicked for you today. What inspired you. Yeah. Thank you for being with me and hearing me out. Thank you so much. Thank you in the chat. Thank you, underground conductor. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Maboma. Leave a comment on all the replays and say hi or just a heart, just something, you guys. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate and enjoy your input. And Dr. T, I don't know if you're still here, but whoever is still here, thank you so much. And welcome any new subscribers. You are welcome here. Hang out with us and be part of our community. We talk about some deep stuff here, but we have some fun too. So check out the other videos. All right. Thank you for hearing me out, you guys. Thank you for spending time with me. Have a good night. See you in next episode. Bye. Big up yourself. Big up yourself, because you deserve to. Okay, so Maboma is just a name which I use for YouTube comment entries. I do not have a channel. Oh, yes, I was wondering. So you're a man. Okay, thank you for clearing that up for me. Oh, you don't have a channel. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, it was a pleasure having you this evening. Stick around, okay? Bye.